In this presentation, I want to talk about reading from a data file. If you take a look at your program over here, you're using some text editor, and for most of my examples I've been using Visual Studio, but some text editor to enter the text of your program. The same thing has to happen when you read information from a data file. And so let's assume that in this example over here you can see that the data file that we're going to read from is called data.txt. So what might data.txt look like? In some text editor, we would open up data.txt, and let's say that we typed in a space and a 1 and a period and a 2 and some new line, which I'm going to signify by using the return key. And then we come down to the next line and we type a space and we type a 1 and we type the return key again. And then on our next line we have space, and then we save and close the file. So I'll show the end of file by just saying EOF. And so data.txt is 3 lines, and we typed it in a text editor, and this is exactly what we're looking at. Now what's going to happen is when you go to read the file, you've got a running program, and over here we take a look at this running program. We have an if stream variable, a char variable, an int variable, and a double variable. And the first thing we come upon is we see input values.open data.txt. And the question is what happens when this statement is executed and our running program executes this statement? And what actually happens is that input values is actually a stream object. And as such, a connection is made with this stream object and our data file. So this data file right here. So we have a connection, and the stream you can think about is just one big long, well, for lack of a better word, array of characters. And it's just these characters that we typed in the text file, just one big long stream of characters. And when we open the file, there's a pointer that points to the beginning of the stream. And this actually is the connection that's created when you say input values.open, assuming that data.txt exists. And there is code that you should put after this to check whether the file opened correctly or not, but I'm not going to do that at this point in time. Now, we have this connection between our running program and this external file, and we're actually going to read information from the stream. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at each one of these, assuming that we just opened up the stream for reading. So the first time, let's say that we say input values, and this right here is the extraction operator. And the extraction operator, interestingly enough, skips all white space. So when you're trying to actually read in to a character variable using the extraction operator, skips white space. And white space is a tab, space, or new line. Okay, so let's come down here and let's take a look at what happens if we try and read into a character. We have opened up the buffer. Again, we're just going to assume that each one of these we're going to open the file. So we've opened the file, we're going to try and read into character variable. Now the first character in the stream is a space, but a space is a white space. So white space is going to be skipped, and we move to the next character. The next character is a 1, and what happens is the character 1 goes in to CH. So CH is equal to the character 1. Once the character 1 goes into CH, the pointer in the stream moves, and when this statement executes after the stream, the data file has been opened, when this statement gets done executing, CH has a value of 1 and the pointer is pointing at the decimal point in the stream. Let's take a look at what happens down here. Input values, int value. Okay, so this is our second example, and again we're going to assume that the stream was just opened again for reading. Well, let me go ahead and use a different color here real quick. So our second example, we just opened up the stream and we are at the beginning. Now, again, the extraction operator is being used. This is the extraction operator. Says skip leading whitespace. Fine, we'll skip leading whitespace. Now, we're trying to input from the stream into an integer value. And we read, as long as we can interpret and input an integer, we put that into int value. So 1 can be interpreted as an integer. We stick that into int value, and now we come up with a decimal point. Well, integers don't have decimal points, and so now we see that int value is equal to 1, and again the stream leaves off at the decimal point. So very similar results. This is the character 1. This 1 was interpreted as an integer value, and now this is the integer value 1. So let's take a look at another example. What happens if we try and input into a double value? So we just opened the file. We're going to assume that. Same thing. We've got our extraction operator right here. It says skip whitespace. Cruise over to here, and now we read in a value of 1, which is part of a double. That's good. Well, a double can have a decimal point, so we go ahead and read that. Move to the next one. Double can have a 2, so this is 1.2 so far. We read to the next whitespace, and we end up here. And so what happens now is that double has a value of 1.2, and the pointer in the stream leaves off at the new line. Now what's important in all of this is that when this stream leaves off, let's go back to this character up here. We read in a character 1, the stream leaves off at the decimal point. If we try and read in to another character variable, well, the decimal point will go into that character variable and the stream pointer will move. If we try and read into a real or a double or a float, point can be interpreted as a double, 2 can be interpreted as a double, and then we'll leave off here. So 0.2 would go into that double or that float. But if we try and read, if the next variable is an int, and we try and read a decimal point into that, we're going to end up with some kind of runtime errors, either some logic or runtime error where, you know, our answer is not going to be what we want it to be. Okay, so this extraction operator will always try and take as much of the stream and interpret that into whatever variable you're trying to read into. Okay, so now our last example. We'll go down here, and this is a little bit different. So I want to show this, and I'll continue on with the next presentation talking about how this is our stream object. Okay, so once again, this is our stream object. But what you'll notice is that objects have associated functions. So this get is a function. So this is pretty cool. Input values.get, and there are many functions that are associated with this stream object. And one of the things that we can do with get is we can get a character. So again, assuming that the file has just been open for reading, so the pointer is pointing at the first position. Now get is going to get exactly one character, and it's going to get the character that's being pointed to. So in this case, space is what's being pointed to, and ch is actually equal to one single space. And then this pointer is moved to point to the next position. So I'm just showing you the difference between the extraction operator, using the extraction operator which skips white space, and the extraction operator allows us to read into characters and integers and floats and doubles. That's really good. If we want to do some character processing, however, and we want to read each particular character, there is a function associated with the stream object called get, and we'll take a look at this at a little bit more detail in the next presentation.